Today we're talking with Dustin Brohm, host of the Massive Agent Podcast, which ranks in the top 5 in the real estate category on Apple Podcasts, has over 300 reviews. Dustin has built a huge personal brand and massive influence in their industry through content creation, and today he's going to give us a complete playbook of how to build a personal brand through content creation, how to optimize your content for Instagram, and how to optimize your content for the different podcast platforms as well. Definitely a conversation you don't want to miss. Let's hop in. All right, Dustin. So, what I'd love to hear about is kind of your additional streams of income into your businesses besides your real estate commission. Too many agents, I think they only have that one stream of income. And I know you've built some secondary businesses around your real estate business. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, like your real estate career and then what your businesses look like today in your own business?
Yeah, man. I started as a solo agent 13 years ago, struggled for years to learn how to actually get business and close deals, and starving to death at a few points in there. But I finally figured it out, because one day, it was 3 or 4 years into my career, out of necessity, I went to Google and I searched how to get real estate leads, and I came across Easy Agent Pro's website.
Yeah, I use
yeah, you use them, and it taught me a new concept that I had never been taught, and I wasn't familiar with, at least consciously. And that was attraction marketing.
Mm-hmm.
That was how I could create a video. I could write a blog post. I could do some sort of social media content that got people to reach out to me and hire me based on some value that I gave them up front. And it was just so polar opposite from what I'd been taught, which was cold call, door knock, read scripts, have the Bluetooth headset in your ear. And, that's what agents do. Well, I didn't want to do that, and I sucked at it because it's just not my personality. So I learned attraction marketing, and it started to work. I started to do blog posts. I started to then learn how to promote those blog posts through social content and ads. And I got really good at the marketing stuff. And I realized, Malcolm, that, during that time, I'm like, wait a minute, I love this marketing stuff much more than I love actually like opening doors, writing offers, negotiating deals. But I just thought I saw them as all one thing, right? And as I kept going down the path of marketing, I realized I was learning some stuff that other agents just hadn't figured out yet. Like me, I was just a step or two ahead of agents that hadn't figured that stuff out yet. And so at the time, Gary Vee, who I discovered Gary Vee recently, this was like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And I remember some specific advice he gave, and that's write an article for your industry, for an industry publication, on why you're using Snapchat for insert industry going into 2016. And I'm like, okay. And I had just started using Snapchat, and I was just figuring it out. And Instagram stories didn't exist then, right? Snapchat was like this brand new story format, and I was learning how to use it. So I wrote an article for Inman, and they published not just the article, but my Snap code, that little ghost QR code deal.
Yeah.
And like the first 3 days that after it was published, I had like 1,500 or 2,000 new followers each day, and they were all agents. And I'm like, okay, my audience has now dramatically shifted to be real estate agents. What the hell do I talk to these agents about? And I'm like, I'm just going to share what I'm working on. Like, here's a Canva graphic that I'm doing. Here's a Facebook ad, and here's this, that, and the other in terms of marketing. And I realized pretty quick there's a huge appetite for that among agents. And so I learned that, wait a minute, there's got to be a way that I could just focus all my time and effort on marketing stuff and help agents who are just a step or two behind me, but still make a living doing it. And that's when I came across, I went to EXP shortly after I started my podcast in 2018. Then I went to EXP, which showed me that I could have other income streams aside from just a coaching group and all of that. And so it was really 2018 that everything changed for me. I started a podcast for real estate agents. I started a coaching group for real estate agents, and then joined EXP and took advantage of the revenue share model. And what that showed me was I could still make a living doing the things that I really enjoyed and was really good at and wanted to spend all day doing. And I didn't have to be the one personally selling homes anymore. I thought up to that point that if I was going to build leverage, I'd have to start a team, which is not a bad option. But I was honest with myself, and I I just didn't want to manage people. I didn't want to be that team lead role. It's just, I wanted a way out of that so that I could stop missing dinners with my family because I was out showing houses. Like, I dreaded when things went well with a client that I was showing houses to, when they're like, "Hey, we want to write an offer." And then I'm like, "Oh shit, I've got to text my wife and say, 'Sorry, babe, I'm going to miss dinner tonight.'" I hated that. And so I didn't want to go the team route, and really leaned into just helping agents
Yeah.
and, being a mentor and a coach and a resource to help them and build their businesses. And I found a way to build a business myself on top of that.
Yeah. I love that, man. Is, every agent I know, they all have some sort of exit strategy out of this industry, right? Nobody wants to do this forever. And for so many, like, starting a team is kind of like their only idea of how to get out of this industry. And so I love that you found 3 different ways to essentially make a full-time income kind of secondary to this real estate commission. So you're not, it's kind of a life by design, not by, default kind of mentality. And so these kind of businesses that you run, how important is social media to those businesses?
It's everything. I mean, the podcast is great because it goes directly to podcast listeners, but
Mhm.
to promote the podcast, I need to use social media. And, like, that's how once you create the content, then you have to get people to know about the content. Right.
Mhm.
So social media, even for the podcast, which has a direct listenership, I still use social media to promote it and to grow the audience. And
Oh,
then for everything else I'm doing, like, that's how I talk to people. Like, in a 24, in this 2024 world, like, that's where people are. That's where you connect with your audience. That's where you, have conversations in the DMs. And so it's everything. I can't imagine how I'd even build what I've built without social media. Like,
yeah.
I've never even thought of that. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, I've heard people say, like, social media marketing is marketing. That is what marketing is today. But oddly enough, there are still agents out there that, like, don't have a Facebook page and don't have a YouTube channel or any kind of social media or personal branding, marketing out there. So I love to kind of dive into each of the platforms that you use and kind of what your advice is for somebody trying to build a personal brand on these. And personally, I'd love to start off with podcasts because this is something I've personally struggled with. I do these interviews and I've been doing these for years now, probably 2018, 2019. And I'm a YouTuber. I primarily just keep them on YouTube. And I have, like, exported some and put them on as a podcast. And I never really see a good ROI on that time I invest in doing that. And I've thought about just nixing that all together. So I know how to optimize content for YouTube. I don't really know how to optimize my podcast. What would you say are, like, best practices for podcasts? And so you said something that was interesting, that, you use social media to promote your podcast. Do your podcasts, like, do they get discovered on these podcast platforms, or primarily are you sending traffic to your podcast or sending people to your podcast?
Both. I mean, so it's interesting to hear you say that, because I started with the podcast and then decided I have these interviews and I have the video, I should put them on YouTube, and those don't perform nearly as well as if it's a made for YouTube. Like,
Right.
the way you do YouTube videos, like, you crush it because it's made for YouTube and it follows a certain formula. And so, like, trying to fit one into the other doesn't necessarily work. If I was starting over today, I would start a podcast for the video, for the social media clips. And in the beginning, I just wanted the audio, and the video was an afterthought, right? Using StreamYard, using Riverside to get good, crisp video is a relatively new thing. I was just getting audio, but you have to build the foundation the right way from the beginning. So at first I just thought, okay, if you're going to market, you got to know who you're marketing to. Well, who's my audience here? Well, real estate agents. Okay, and you have to drill deeper. You can't just say agents, because that could be, 60-year-old Betty that's worn the same name tag for 30 years that doesn't even go on social media, right? You have to define what type of agent. And so I thought entrepreneurial agents that want to build a business, agents that are scaling and in the process of growth, that maybe they're stuck. There's something that they're missing that they don't quite know they're missing.
Mhm.
That's the type of real estate agent that I'm speaking to. So then it became easy to just say, okay, what should I do a show about today? Because I have my audience in mind. What do they need? What would appeal to them? And because it's authentic to me and I just share my journey, it finds the right audience. But you can't just record something and expect that it's going to grow. I do get growth from the podcast platforms. It does get shared and promoted, but that's because I focus on getting reviews and getting ratings and
Mm,
getting shares. And, when new people are coming to a platform and they're searching your podcast name, that
mhm.
tells the podcast platform that, hey, this podcast is in demand. And I believe YouTube works the same way, right? If someone goes to the platform, searches for you instead of following a link, it just shows a higher level of intent or or quality of the content that's being sought out. So I focus heavily on reviews. I have over 300 or so. I believe it's one of the top 3 reviewed podcasts in real estate, which is crazy. But I ask for reviews, and that's helped. There were times when I would read reviews. So if someone would leave one, I'd do the review of the week, or I'd read a couple of them just to give someone an extra reason to leave a review. They really do help, ratings and reviews. But then just promoting clips, promoting, like, learning how to say, hey, I just did an episode on this. You should go listen. You've got to learn, like, for example, the NAR settlement that's relatively new news within our industry. I did a Instagram story with a link to listen, and I just said, here's what agents actually need to know, and it's not what you think. Something along those lines. So they're like, oh, I'm curious. It's not what I think. There's a new, fresh
Right.
perspective. I better click and listen, and then I get new listeners that way. So you've got to learn how to do hooks and, and
Yeah.
how to promote your stuff. But social media is just such a great tool to help build an audience with.
Yeah, what I tell people, so like I'm a YouTuber. I've been doing YouTube for 12 years or so now, and what I tell people is you got to create headlines, not labels. And
Yes,
that's what it sounds like. You're creating headlines for your podcast titles, not the Massive Agent Podcast episode 372.
correct. Yep.
Um,
Yep. I'm not Joe Rogan. I can't just put like episode 5082 and someone's name. Like, I have to come up with like a clickable title, just
yeah,
like you would a YouTube video.
yeah, and I'm guessing these are essentially the same exact YouTube titles for your YouTube version of that as
Pretty
well.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it looks like your description as well. This looks like it's probably just copied and pasted from your YouTube videos. Is there a best practice around descriptions for podcasts, or is it pretty much the same thing as YouTube? Just kind of try to sprinkle in a keyword or two there.
Yeah,
And
it's a very similar. My understanding is it's a very similar thing to YouTube descriptions. You're thinking of on platform SEO,
yeah,
and so keywords are important, but also readability. You,
yeah,
you want to, like, if there's some bullet points on here's what you're going to learn, and those things are attractive. You have to get good at that. So I do a combination of AI to take a whole transcript of my show, put it into show notes, and then I take that and, fancy it up a little bit, make it a little bit less formal, and, add some more of my personality into it, make some better hooks. And I'll pretty much do a very similar thing on the YouTube description as the podcast show notes.
okay, cool, man. And what so kind of one challenge with podcasts as well is that there's Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all these different platforms. Which ones do you think is like the most relevant, or the one that we should prioritize, I guess, reviews the most out of all of those?
Apple, and it's not even close.
Oh,
So
really?
my stats show that about 93% of listeners come through Apple.
Wow.
93%, and the other 7% are Spotify. There's like another 1% collectively from, like, a bunch of random ones, but there's really Apple, Spotify, and Google, and all these other players like Pocket Casts or I forget. There's a few other ones. They just pull from Apple. So there's really only 3 platforms, really: Apple, Google, and Spotify. And the ones that you should get reviews on: Apple for sure, and Spotify. And reviews on Spotify are a relatively new thing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, there's my mistake. I don't even have it mine on Apple. I went with Spotify, and YouTube has a podcast feature for your interviews. So I'm not even playing the game. I'm not even in the race. That's why I'm not getting any traction with it.
Yeah. I use Buzzsprout for my podcast hosting platform, and that makes it very easy to, you upload the audio, you do the show notes, and then after you've created the connections to Apple and Spotify and Google and Pocket Casts and all the places, you hit publish and it just goes to all of them. And so, yeah, but Apple is by far still the biggest platform there is for podcasting. And at least for me, it's not even close.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know, man. Well, let's dive into, I guess, your YouTube strategy for this.
Oh, I'm not the best. Well, I could show you what doesn't work on YouTube.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you're doing a lot of things right. You got good clickable titles. You got good, clean YouTube thumbnails as well. What doesn't work on YouTube then?
I mean, I'm taking a podcast, which is meant as a podcast with really just me talking to the camera, or it's a recording of, Riverside, me and a guest, and trying to make that a YouTube thing. And if I really wanted it to work well on YouTube as a podcast, I would need multiple camera angles. It would need to be live, because those are the clips you see online, right? When you're watching a clip on social or YouTube of a podcast, it's a really well done production. And so, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of half-assing the YouTube. And every once in a while, it's been a while since I've done this, but I will make a made for YouTube video, like a YouTube original. And it's a different language on YouTube than a social media video, because as you know, it's a search engine. And there's a certain format that you need to follow. There's certain calls to action, and it's just different. There's a different demand from the viewer on YouTube, different expectations than on social media. Social media, they're there for like random shit popping in front of them. They're just there to be entertained a minute at a time or 30 seconds at a time. YouTube, people want to dive deep on a topic, or they want context. And so, where I think I'm screwing up is not taking more of the podcast and taking specific clips, or just taking a certain part that would be a topic in and of itself and just reshooting it made for YouTube. And I think that for me, that's the next level.
That'd be interesting, taking clips. Like Joe Rogan has a clips YouTube channel, and
it's huge.
Has a clips YouTube channel. I mean, and to your point, like, it is hard to grow a show like that on YouTube, especially for real estate agents. I'm trying to do it now, and really, I use that kind of content as middle of funnel content. Like, nobody ever discovers me from that type of content, but they discover me from my other content, and then they kind of continue that journey with me. And there's so many agents that have, podcasts on YouTube, and it definitely is kind of a challenge there. Right. Okay, let's talk about your Instagram account then. You seem to be having pretty good success with that. What advice do you have for somebody wanting to get started on Instagram?
Great question. So Instagram, first off, it's my favorite platform. It just makes sense to me. I enjoy it. And so, like, the first app that I open in the morning when I wake up is Instagram. And so first off, you've got to know what that platform is for you. Maybe that's Facebook, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's YouTube. But if Instagram's something you want to focus on, you have to learn what works on Instagram. And so I spend a lot of time just watching other content, not just real estate creators, but fitness, golf, travel, all sorts of different content, because it gives me ideas. And then I'll take a format of a video, or I'll take a certain sound or a certain camera angle or something, or even a certain topic, and I'll just take that and, like, hey, I could use that, but about this topic for my audience. So Chelsea Pites, my friend Chelsea, says that the best content creator is the best content consumer. So I spend a bunch of time consuming content on Instagram so that I can get inspired, so I can learn what works. And then once I learn what works, I just, create that myself. So, and then I experiment. Reels are important, but then, like, podcast clips edited certain way, short little stuff that's 7 seconds long that pushes people into the caption. Now carousel images work. I try all of it. I try humor, I try education, and try to have a good mix. But the key is to be authentic to you and not try to have someone else's personality in your content. You can get inspired by someone else's formats, but you don't want to, just because someone did a skit, you don't want to do the same skit if that's not your personality. Like the first skit I did is when I announced changing brokerages a few weeks ago, and I felt like a fish out of water because I don't do skits. It was that one right there. Like
I'm
it was,
with you. I don't do those either.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did one for this, but now I'm going back to talking head videos or memes, green screen videos where I'm talking about a topic because that's authentic to me. And then just do it in your personality. As long as you do it with your personality and you don't give a shit who likes it or who doesn't like it, you'll attract the right people. And that's such a hack for social media in general, but especially Instagram. Instagram loves people with opinions and people with personalities. So make sure you don't filter yours before you come on the platform.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I'm with you. Like here at Real, there's so many guys doing these funny skits on Instagram. And I've always been the type of guy that I like making 45-minute, really detailed videos and writing a 3,000 word article. Like that's the type of content that I like to create. And I always feel this pressure like, oh, I got to do a funny skit on Instagram, or I got to do one of these things where you're shaking and pointing at things. And I just said, no, I'm not doing that.
No.
I'm going to create the type of content that I like to create. So on YouTube, having buckets of content is pretty important, and kind of different series on your channel. Do you have buckets of content or like similar like series on your Instagram feed?
I do, yes, but it's more like different formats of videos. It's not as intentional as maybe it should be or could be, but I love doing great edited clips from the podcast. I
Mhm.
like doing funny memes that will make realtors laugh or that are relatable to realtors. Um, I like um, I like doing green screens. So if there's a certain topic, a certain news headline, a certain something happening in the world, I like to just give a hot take with the green screen format. So I just look at it as trying to hit those different formats of content, and for me, that's good enough. I just make sure to ask myself one question before I create a piece of content: am I posting this because I want someone to see it? Or am I posting it because I think it'll actually add value to the people that are my ideal audience? And as long as you can make sure you're not just posting it to be selfish, like a just listed or a just sold thing, you can create much better content that your audience actually cares about.
Nice, man. I like that. So I'm relatively new to Instagram. I've only been doing that for maybe like a year and a half now. I'm very late to coming to Instagram, and I'm trying to get more consistent at it. And I see that you put quite a bit of work into your descriptions. Is that pretty? And you even have hashtags, which I haven't been doing. Do you think having a detailed description and hashtags, is that relevant today for your Instagram content?
I don't think hashtags matters much.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't really seen much of a difference with hashtags, and supposedly on Instagram, hashtags are becoming less necessary because the algorithm is so smart. They just grab keywords. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, if keywords are important, I need a place where there are keywords, and that's the caption. And one of the most important metrics for how well your content performs is time, watch time.
Yeah.
Very similar to YouTube. So you want to make your video sticky. You want to make the post sticky. And that's not just the video. That's not just the post. It's the caption. So a lot of times I will create a video and then I'll push people like, more info in the caption or read caption for more or whatever. And I'll just elaborate deeper, add some more, I'll put more meat on the bone, so to speak, because then the people that choose to click on the caption, they're spending more time on my post while the video just keeps looping in the background. And
Right.
it's an indicator to the algorithm, hey, this is sticky content because people are spending a lot of time on the post.
Right. That's actually pretty clever. You're right. If somebody sat here and read this entire thing, this video may loop 2, 3, 4 times. Yeah, I like that. And are you posting this as a comment, or is this part of the description of the video?
The actual description. Yeah,
Okay.
the caption of the post itself.
Okay, cool, man. Okay, well, maybe I got to start doing that. Are you writing these yourself, or do you use AI tools to help you
Yeah,
write something like this?
I think I've tried to use AI
Yeah.
for for the most part. I write all of that myself. Like I may use Chat GPT to give me a couple ideas on something, like if I'm doing bullet points,
Hmm.
but I write it myself because I want to make sure that at the top there's some sort of call to action, like send this to a friend or save this post or, you know, comment this word to get the link or whatever. And then I'll give information and another call to action at the bottom. I use emojis because it helps break up a big block of text better. And so, yeah, for the most part, I just write that myself.
Okay, cool, man. Can you talk a little bit about call to actions on Instagram? Because I don't really know what to do for call to actions on Instagram. I know YouTube, but like, do you do a lot of posts where your call to action is, hey, go check out the full podcast? And
Yes.
is linking external links, does that hurt your post on Instagram like it does on other platforms?
It can, yeah. So if it's a podcast clip that I'm sharing,
Mm,
in the caption, I will say this clip is from episode 325, you know, now available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts are found. Just so people can find it if they want more. Every once in a while, I'll say, hey, comment the word whatever, and then I'll use ManyChat to send them a link if they comment that word. If you're going to do links, of course, you could do the link in your bio or you could do a link in your story, but Instagram doesn't want you leaving Instagram to go to YouTube, right?
right.
YouTube doesn't want you leaving YouTube to go to Instagram because these platforms make money when you stay on the platform so they can show you more ads, right? So if you can accomplish that as a content creator, you'll be rewarded. And so uh, every once in a while, I'll put a link sticker in my stories and people directly click out. It's going to perform dramatically better if I use ManyChat to say reply with the word, data, and I'll send you the link. Reply with the word watch, and I'll send you the link because now you're building engagement instead of sending people directly away. So now that story or that post is going to get a bunch of comments, just boom, 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 boom. It's going to perform so much better. The engagement goes through the roof. And then in the DMs, they get a link to whatever it is you're sending them to, your blog post, your new video, and then they can go from there. But it doesn't affect the post itself because it's in the DMs.
Wow, that's clever right there. I like that. See, that's good. That's some high level Instagram hacks there. And you said you use ManyChat. Is that a program? What does that do?
Yeah, ManyChat it started as like a Facebook chatbot platform,
Hmm.
but now it automates Facebook and Instagram. Well, it's Facebook and Instagram automation in a bunch of different ways. So one of the easiest ways is, comment the word, growth, and we'll send you this link.
Yeah,
And it just automates that process. So you're not having to like wait until someone comments that word and then go manually, send them a link. It automates the whole thing.
I love that, man. So how many pieces of content do you think you're putting out every week at this point between Instagram, YouTube, podcast, blogging?
I've never counted them all together. So I would say every week, it depends on the week. Lately, I've been much busier than, uh, and I've posted less, but I'd say, so I do one podcast a week, at least one YouTube video a week. I'll try to do 3 or 4 shorts on YouTube. If I can do a YouTube original, I will, but it's been a while.
Hmm.
So, and then I try to post every other day on Instagram. Ideally, you could post daily. And especially if you're trying to grow, if you're
Yeah,
trying to grow, more at bats is better, right? So it's just more chances to reach people. More people you do reach, more you're learning so much better, so much faster about what to do and what works if you're posting daily versus every other day. And so you just have to know what your goals are. And I'm at a point where the Instagram algorithm has advanced to where it doesn't necessarily hurt you if you're posting less often. Um, I found that sometimes if I take 3 or 4 days off, it works better because then certain posts get time to breathe a little bit, right? And I think it works similar on YouTube as well, from what I've heard. And so you just have to know what your goals are. I'm not in the phase where it's like I must grow my audience and that's the number one thing. It's like I have a decent sized audience now. It's how do I maximize the relationships? How do I
right.
maximize engagement and impact with it? So
I love that, man. So Dustin, if what do you have any books or podcasts beside your own that you recommend to agents who want to grow their businesses or build their personal brand or just kind of focus on growth? Like what are some of your favorite books or podcasts to listen to?
I would step outside the real estate industry. So I started my podcast by listening to Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn. It's just an online marketing podcast, and it I learned the power of podcasting and why I should start one from that show. But I also learned about like landing pages and, email marketing and all sorts of other great things. So if you see yourself as a marketer who sells homes, then Smart Passive Income may be a good one. I really like to know what's going on just in the business world in general. So All In is a podcast I listen to every single week. It's probably the only one that I listen to on Friday whenever it drops. Like I want to listen on the way to the gym, so I'm like refreshing to see if it drops on Fridays. I love All In with these 4 Silicon Valley billionaires that one of the co-founders of PayPal is a co-host. Just really, really high level, intelligent people in the business and entrepreneurship and startup world. So I love All In. They talk about economic stuff and current events too. And then what else do I listen to? I can't think of it off the top of my head. Podcasts.
Oh, that's pretty good. All In, and then Smart Passive Income. I do like Pat Flynn. I've been following him for years.
He's great
on YouTube. All right, man. Well, Dustin, if anybody wants to follow you, what's your social media handles?
At Massive Agent. So
too easy.
Yep, Massive Agent on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, pretty much everywhere, and then Massive Agent Podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. You can find the Massive Agent Podcast.
I love it. All right, man. We really appreciate your time today, and I'll be seeing you at the Real conferences coming up.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.
Right. So I recently started a weekly email of free training here at Real Broker that's open to all agents at all brokerages. Every single week, I personally hand select what I think are the 5 most interesting live trainings that we have going on that week in the Real Academy, and I send that out to my email list. If you like free training and you'd like to sign up for this weekly email, I have a link down in the description below. And if you'd like to see more interviews just like this on the Next Gen Agents Show, you can check out this playlist right here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.